My name is Erilyn Soren. I am 30 years old. A few weeks ago, I heard something from my dad that hurt me very much. I was standing in the hallway, holding a mug of coffee, just enjoying the warm drink, when I heard his voice from the living room. "Your brother's new in-laws are very fancy," he said. "You'll embarrass us. Do you understand, Erilyn? Don't ruin this." His words hit me like a bucket of cold water. He said it like I was a problem to be fixed, not his daughter. My brother had just gotten engaged to a woman who was super rich and fancy. She was the kind of person you see in glossy magazines about hotels and luxury vacations. Suddenly, my normal life in Austin, where I worked with computers and numbers, seemed like a threat to their shiny, perfect world. They didn't care that I spent my nights helping hotels earn more money, fixing their booking systems, and making sure they didn't lose money. To them, I was just the awkward girl who asks too many questions and doesn't know which fork to use at a fancy dinner. So, while they were packing suitcases full of designer clothes for a big New Year's Eve party at a fancy resort, I was told to stay home. They didn't want me at the party. They didn't want me near the rich and fancy people. And they definitely didn't want anyone to know I was part of the family. What they didn't know was that the same rich in-laws had been working with me for months under a different name. They trusted me to help save their business. And on the night they tried to hide me, those same people looked at a framed photo, saw my face, and screamed my name in front of everyone. They finally realized that I was the one who had been helping them all along. Have you ever been treated like you are a problem, only to find out that you are actually the one who has all the power? That is exactly what happened to me. Stay with me, because the story of how this party went from embarrassment to payback is something you will want to hear. I did not grow up thinking I was embarrassing. As a kid, I just thought I was different. While other kids ran around at family barbecues, I would sit at the plastic table, quietly counting how many hot dogs people took. I wondered why my Uncle Torin always left early. I asked questions that made adults feel uncomfortable. Why do you invest in that company if it owes so much money? I would ask. Why do you say we're fine with money if mom works 2 jobs? People would laugh at first, and then they would stop talking to me. My parents, Corvin and Vera Soren, would pull me aside. "Erilyn, can you please just be normal for once? Smile. Talk about school. Don't ask so many questions," they would say. Meanwhile, my older brother Darian was everything they wanted. He knew exactly when to laugh, when to compliment someone's watch, when to ask about golf. He was always perfect in their eyes. I remember one time at Darian's high school graduation dinner. I stood too close to the waiter, asking about tips and wages, and accidentally bumped into a tray of marinara sauce. It spilled all over a guest's white dress. The whole table went silent. My mother's face turned red, like a tomato. My dad grabbed my arm so hard it hurt and whispered angrily, "This is exactly what I mean. You don't belong in these settings." After that, I stopped trying to fit in at their fancy parties. Instead, I focused on numbers. In high school, I taught myself spreadsheets just for fun. I liked organizing numbers and figuring out patterns. In college, while other students were posting pictures from parties and events, I was running tests for small hotels that I couldn't afford. I studied business analytics and computer science, learning how to take messy numbers and turn them into clear answers. Hotels started coming to me with the same problem: too many empty rooms and not enough guests. I would sit in my dorm room at 3 a.m., staring at charts and graphs, tweaking prices, and trying new strategies until everything worked. Back home in Austin, though, none of that seemed to matter. When I told my mom I got my first client, she smiled politely and said, "So, you're still doing that online thing?" My dad waved it off. "It's just temporary. She'll get a real job eventually." Darian, on the other hand, went straight into law, joined a big firm, and became the golden boy. Our parents introduced him to everyone as our future star. When I showed up at family dinners in jeans after working 12 hours for 3 small hotels at once, my mom whispered, "Could you at least pretend you're not working from your bedroom?" At some point, I decided that if my family was never going to see my value in person, I would build it quietly outside their notice. I started my own consulting business called Soren Analytics and began saying no to family parties where I would be embarrassed. I chose numbers over polite talk, dashboards over fancy dinners. While my parents polished Darian's image, I was learning something very important. Numbers could change the fate of an entire company. But what would happen the day my numbers collided with my family's obsession with status and appearances? The first time Myrrh and Vale Resorts came into my life, it was because someone was desperate. One hot afternoon in Austin, I was half asleep over a spreadsheet when an email popped up. urgent, mid-size resort chain in trouble. Can you help? A small agency I had worked with before was panicking. Their client, a luxury hotel group, had lost bookings after the pandemic. They needed someone to make sense of the mess fast. That client was Mur & Vale Resorts. At that moment, it was just a logo and a name in an email. A few hours later, my phone rang. "This is Lucien Mur," a man said, sounding tired. "We've been told you can save numbers. Can you help?" I liked that he didn't want to be on camera. I preferred not being seen. Over the next hour, he told me everything. Their hotels were half empty. Competitors were taking their guests. The last agency had spent a huge amount of money with almost nothing to show. I should have been scared, but instead I felt clarity. This was just a bigger version of the puzzles I had been solving for years. I asked for access to their booking system, their ads, and their website stats. Within days, I found problems no one else had noticed. Prices were the same every day, even when demand changed. Ads were showing to the wrong people. Their website was losing guests because the mobile form was hard to use. I built a plan. We changed prices based on demand. We turned off useless ads and spent money where it would actually bring guests. I created special packages for remote workers and local families. It was risky. I told Lucien. He said, "If your numbers are right, we have nothing left to lose. Do it." The first month, bookings went up a little. The second month, they went up a lot. Revenue increased. Even the board stopped worrying. One evening, Lucien called. "You have no idea what you've done for us, Erilyn." He said they were making a case study at their main resort with my face and name. I laughed and told him I preferred to stay behind the scenes, but I sent a professional photo anyway. My photo sat in a gold frame with the caption, "Data and Growth Strategist, Erilyn Soren." I closed the file, thinking it was just another quiet when no one at home needed to know about. But soon, the same resort hosted a glittering charity gala. At that gala, my polished brother Darian met El Calatra Mur, the millionaire heir my parents would love instantly. 3 months after my first big success with Mur & Vale, Darian called me. "Hey, are you free for coffee?" "I have news," he said. We met at a sleek downtown cafe. He wore a tailored suit on a Saturday. I knew something big had happened. "I'm engaged," he said, smiling. "To Calatra," he added. Her name hit me like a glitch in my brain. "Mur? As in Mur & Vale?" He nodded. Her family owned a huge hotel empire. Dad was excited. I smiled, but inside, I knew I was already 10 steps ahead, having worked with her family's business months ago. I said, "That's great. I'm happy for you." We talked about the proposal, the ring, and our parents' reactions. Then Darian told me about the New Year's Eve engagement party at Calatra's family resort. I waited for him to ask if I wanted to help pick a dress or book a flight. But instead, he said, "Look, Erilyn, I think it's better if you sit this one out." I stared at him. "Sit it out? It's a very fancy crowd. Calatra's family, they're friends, they're used to a certain environment. You know how you get in these situations." "How do I get it?" I repeated sharply. "You ask heavy questions. You make people uncomfortable. Mom and Dad are nervous. They think it's safer if you don't come. Safer like you're a storm that might ruin the night." I laughed flatly. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't invited to my own brother's engagement party because I didn't fit their image. He muttered, "It's not like that. We'll have a smaller family dinner later. Just us. You know I love you, right? This is just a strategy." When I got home, my parents were in the living room, talking quietly and looking worried. I realized then that my life was full of these moments, people trying to hide me, make me small, or pretend I didn't exist. But little did they know, I had already made a name for myself. I had already saved big companies with my skills. And this party, this New Year's Eve party, would soon teach them all a lesson. I stopped in the hallway without anyone noticing me. "Your brother's wife's family is very important," Dad was saying. "We can't let Erilyn talk too much about money, or say anything that might make someone feel embarrassed. She might make us look bad." Vera sighed. "She doesn't mean to, Tom, but maybe this could help Darian get something really good. We can't let her mess it up." Her words hit me harder than any slap could. Upstairs, my laptop was still open on the screen from Mur & Vale, the same shiny logo that would be on the invitations to Darian's New Year's Eve party. They were scared I would embarrass them in front of the rich people whose money I had helped. I closed my eyes and took a slow, deep breath. Fine, I thought. If they want to hide me, let them. They have no idea how small their story really is. They think this party is about showing off, but they don't know that in the middle of all that champagne and glitter, my name is already there, waiting to shake up their perfect little plan. New Year's Eve came faster than I wanted. The week between Christmas and the 31st felt strange, like the world was holding its breath. My parents were busy in the house, talking about flights, outfits, and what kind of gift would be good for the Murs. Darian sent me a picture of the invitation. It was all shiny gold and fancy letters. "Wish you could come," he wrote, as if I had not already been deliberately left out. On the morning of the party, I watched them leave for the airport dressed in their best clothes. My mom wore a new dress she really couldn't afford without using a credit card. My dad was adjusting a tie he bought on sale but pretended was expensive. They waved, and I waved back from the doorway. I was the beautiful daughter they told to stay home for my own good. When the Uber drove away, the house went quiet. It felt heavy, like the air was pressing down on my chest. That night, the city glittered with fireworks and rooftop parties, but I stayed in my apartment with takeout food and my laptop open on the coffee table. I tried to watch a movie, but my phone kept lighting up. Photos from my mom showed the fancy hotel lobby with huge chandeliers. Videos from Darian showed tall towers of champagne and a live band. Kalitra walked down a big staircase in a shiny silver dress like she was in a magazine. In one video, I could hear my dad saying, "That's my son up there. He's marrying into the Mur family." I stared at the screen until the images blurred. They were inside the world they had always wanted, and they had done everything to make sure I was not there. So, I closed the photos and opened a different window. It was the analytics screen for Mur and Vale's year-end numbers. I watched numbers move across the screen. Data showed reservations coming into the same hotels my brother was celebrating with, while they smiled for pictures. I watched occupancy rates rise and revenue bars fill in. The numbers I had helped improve were turning into bonuses and parties for people who would never know my name. Then an email popped up. The subject line said, "Year-end update and a special request." It was from Lucien Mur. I clicked it open, expecting a small thank you. But he had written a long paragraph about how much my work had helped their company. "You didn't just change a few ads," he wrote. "You changed the way we understand our business. We want to honor you properly." At the bottom of the email was an attachment called Concept Wall of Innovation, JPG. When I opened it, my breath caught. It was a picture of the entrance to one of their big hotels. There was a long wall with framed pictures. Each picture had a title and a short description of a project. In the middle was my headshot, looking calm and confident. Under my picture was a plaque that said, "Data and Growth Strategist Erilyn Soren." The description talked about how I helped the company, changing pricing, running smart campaigns, and helping them recover after the pandemic. Guests would walk past this wall on their way into meetings and parties, drinking champagne while my face looked back at them. Lucien wrote that they were planning to show this wall at a big party for partners and family. He wanted to meet me in person and introduce me to the people whose jobs I had helped save. I held my hands over the keyboard. On my phone, another photo came from my mom. Darian and Kalitra were cuddling under confetti, and my parents were blurred in the background, smiling. I imagined that somewhere near them, my wall might exist. My picture would quietly prove that I was not a failure. It was funny to think that the place they wanted me to stay away from could end up showing off my work. I replied to Lucien with a simple, professional yes. I told him I would be happy to come when it happened. Then I set my phone down, leaned back on my couch, and listened to fireworks in the distance. They thought they erased me from this night. But the truth was on my laptop screen in a gold frame. My name was part of their shiny new world. They just didn't know it yet. The months after New Year's felt like someone had quietly turned on the light in my life, while my family acted like I was still sitting in the dark. Mur and Vale gave me long-term contracts. I went to meetings about opening new hotels, expanding properties, and even buying new ones. I had late-night calls about resorts in California and the Caribbean, running numbers and simulations for them. My days blurred into dashboards and strategy plans, the kind of work that people dream about. My bank account grew too. I traded my old car for a reliable hybrid. Fixed the leak in my bathroom. Moved into a safe one-bedroom apartment. I did all this quietly. No social media posts, no bragging. I knew exactly how my parents would react if I tried to explain performance contracts or bonuses. They would smile and ask if I thought about a real job at a local office. Meanwhile, Darian's life looked perfect. My mom sent constant updates. Photos of him and Kalitra at wine tastings, charity balls, luxury trips, and screenshots of news articles mentioning the Mur name. At Sunday dinners, conversations were about wedding plans, guest lists, and how amazing it was that our family would soon belong at events with tuxedos and money talks. Once over meatloaf, Darian said, "Lucian is bringing a genius consultant for their new data strategy. He's like a wizard with numbers. If I play this right, I could work on some of those deals." I took a slow sip of water to hide my reaction. Mom looked impressed. "See, that's the kind of people you want to be around," she said. "People who know how to make things happen." I wondered what she would say if she knew the wizard had been me, arguing with Lucian about whether to cap occupancy during certain holidays to protect long-term value. But I didn't say anything. Let them talk about being close to power. I was busy actually building it. One afternoon, an email from Lucian's assistant made me sit up straight. They were finalizing details for the big gala at the Miami flagship. She wrote, "It's both a celebration of this year's turnaround and an engagement gala for Miss Calitra Murr and Mr. Darian Soren. Lucian and Evelise are especially excited to honor you that evening. They want you front and center when we show the Wall of Innovation." Attached was the invitation, heavy and shiny even on the screen. My name was near the top under strategic partners. My brother's name was lower, under family of the groom. I stared for a second. I hadn't heard from my parents yet about this party, but I could imagine the conversation. They would brag about being invited to the ultra-exclusive New Year's gala. They would talk about how only the right people could go, while quietly planning to keep me out again. The difference this time was simple. The Murrs were inviting me not as Darian's sister, but as the person who had changed their business. I called Lucian to confirm details. He sounded excited. "We've been telling everyone about you," he said. "I can't wait to see their faces when they realize the person behind those numbers is real." I hung up, leaned back in my chair, and let the thought sink in. My family spent the entire year trying to hide me, thinking I would embarrass them in front of their fancy friends. But at this party, my face would be waiting for them, framed in gold, my name shining in letters. They thought they were stepping into a world where I didn't belong. They were about to find out that I had been part of that world long before they even entered it. The Murr flagship in Miami looked exactly like the kind of place my parents dreamed about. Marble floors, huge palm trees, flowers probably costing more than my first car. The night of the gala, the air was warm and full of excitement. Staff in crisp uniforms moved perfectly, guiding guests toward the grand ballroom. The lobby smelled like fresh flowers and polished wood. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling in the warm light. A pianist played soft music while guests in glittering dresses and sharp suits whispered to each other. I walked carefully through the lobby, feeling a little nervous but mostly proud. When I reached the grand ballroom, I saw it was even bigger than I imagined. Long tables were covered with white cloth and decorated with candles and flowers. Glasses glittered in the soft light. Guests whispered and laughed, holding champagne glasses high. And there it was, the Wall of Innovation. The wall was long and shiny, lined with framed pictures. Each frame had a project, a photo, a title, and a short description. And right in the middle was me. My headshot looked calm and confident, with my name written in gold letters below. Erilyn Soren, Data and Growth Strategist. I felt a rush of pride. Every project I had worked on, every number I had changed, every strategy one had created, it was all there. People would walk past and see my face and know I had made a difference. My parents might be here somewhere, talking about how great Darian was, but I didn't need their approval. I was already recognized. Lucian came up to me, smiling. "Everyone's been talking about you," he said. "I can't wait to see their reactions when they realize who you are." I nodded, my stomach full of excitement. Somewhere out there, my family thought they could hide me, but now they couldn't. As the night went on, I watched guests walk past the wall, reading the stories, nodding, whispering. My name was everywhere. People I had never met were impressed with my work. Some even stopped to take pictures in front of my frame. I felt like I was part of something big, something important. And then I saw them, my parents. They were standing near the back, looking around. I caught my dad's eye for a brief moment. He blinked. My mom's mouth opened slightly. They hadn't expected this. I smiled just a little, keeping my head high. They thought I would be invisible, but here I was front and center, framed in gold. The party went on. Champagne flowed, music played, and everyone celebrated. I moved around the room, talking to people about projects, strategies, and numbers. I explained dashboards and campaigns in simple ways so they could understand. People listened, fascinated. I realized that I had finally found a place where my work mattered, where my name and effort counted. At one point, I glanced at my phone. Another photo came from my mom. Darian and Calitra were smiling under confetti, holding each other's hands. In the background, my parents looked surprised, their eyes wide. I chuckled quietly. My picture was right there, showing everyone who I really was, while they tried to make it all about Darian. I leaned back for a moment, looking at the glittering ceiling. Fireworks were visible outside the huge windows, lighting up the night sky. I thought about the year that had passed, the weeks I had stayed home while they went to fancy parties, the work I had done quietly, the contracts, the late nights, the strategies. All of it had led to this. I wasn't hidden anymore. My work had made me visible, important, and respected. The gala continued, and I moved closer to the wall of innovation again. Guests were reading about each project, nodding and whispering to each other. I saw colleagues from Mur and Vale, smiling proudly. Some came up to shake my hand. "You really changed everything for us," one person said. "We couldn't have done it without you." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. I thought about my parents again. They had spent so much energy trying to hide me, worried I would embarrass them. But they couldn't hide me from this world. My work, my effort, and my achievements were bigger than their fear or pride. And tonight, everyone could see it. As the night went on, speeches were made, music played, and people danced. I stayed near the wall, quietly watching, enjoying the feeling of being recognized. It was strange but wonderful to see that I didn't need anyone to validate me. I had done this myself. I had worked hard, stayed focused, and now I belonged in a world that I had built for myself. By the end of the night, the gala was winding down. People were leaving, thanking hosts, and hugging each other. I walked slowly toward the exit, glancing at the wall of innovation one last time. My picture shone brightly, framed in gold. My name was there, proof of everything I had done. I knew that my parents might still try to keep me in their story, but this night had shown me something important. I was part of the world I had built, and no one could take that away. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment, feeling the sunlight streaming through the window. The city outside was quiet, peaceful, and bright. I thought about the gala, the wall, the people who had recognized my work. I felt proud and happy, and I knew that I was ready for whatever came next. From that day forward, I continued working with Mur and Vale, helping them grow, plan, and improve. Every new project reminded me of the night at the gala, when my work was celebrated, and my name was recognized. My parents could still talk about Darian and Calitra, but I knew the truth. I had built something real, something important, and something that no one could take away. I had found my place in the world, not by being part of someone else's story, but by creating my own. And that was the best feeling in the world. I arrived early, just like I was asked to. I didn't come as Darian's sister like I usually did, but as someone important to the company. I came as one of the people who helped make big decisions and helped the company grow. A friendly coordinator came up to me and handed me a badge. On it, my name was written in neat, clean black letters. It said, Erilyn Soren, Data and Growth Strategist. When I saw it, my chest felt funny. For the first time in a long time, people weren't thinking about me as just Darian's sister. They were thinking about me as me, Erilyn Soren, the person who worked hard, made smart decisions, and helped this company stay alive when things were really hard. Inside the big lobby, the wall of innovation stretched along one side. It looked just like the pictures we had planned. There were gold frames shining under soft, warm lights. Each frame told a story about the company's history and the people who worked there. Every story showed how the company had survived difficult times. And there, near the center, was my frame. My photo, my name, and a description of the work I had done. Lucien and Evelise came over to me. They smiled and looked so happy to see me. They introduced me to the important people, board members, heads of departments, and people who made big decisions about the company. These were the people whose work depended on the kind of decisions I helped make. For the first hour, I forgot about my family entirely. I talked about numbers, future plans, and strategies. I even laughed at a joke the CFO made about predicting the company's profits. I felt like I really belonged there, like I was supposed to be there all along. Then I heard my mother's voice. It came from the lobby, high and nervous. "Oh, this place is wow. Darian, look at that chandelier." I turned just enough to see them walking in. My dad wore a suit that suddenly looked cheaper under the fancy lights. My mom was clutching her bag like it might run away if she let go. Darian and Calitra were walking ahead like they belonged there. They were smiling, looking around at the decorations and the people. My first instinct was to shrink back, maybe hide behind someone taller. But the staff already knew who I was. One of them came over, smiling politely. Ms. Soren, can we get you near the wall? Mr. Murr wants you to close for the announcement. So instead of hiding, I stood just a few feet away from my own framed photo as my family crossed the lobby. They didn't see me at first. Their eyes were on the chandeliers, the decorations, and the excitement of the night. They didn't notice me standing there, a part of the celebration. Evelise gently tapped her champagne glass to get everyone's attention. The chatter in the room softened, and people turned toward her. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice clear and calm. Tonight is about family and partnership. It is about the people who held this company up when things looked impossible. People who helped us survive when we thought we might fail. She gestured toward the wall. Over the past year, we made this wall to remind ourselves that numbers are not just numbers. Numbers represent people. People who worked hard, people who did amazing things, people who changed everything when we needed it the most. She stepped closer to my frame and smiled warmly. One of those people is someone very special to us now. This is Erilyn Soren. The floor seemed to tilt under me for a second. My parents froze, unsure what to do. Darian's head snapped toward the sound of my name. Evelise read my plaque out loud. Data and growth strategist, the mind behind the turnaround that kept these resorts alive when travel was at its worst. You have no idea how often we have said her name this year. Then she looked at me, following the line from the frame to where I stood. Her eyes went wide, like she had just solved a puzzle she hadn't realized was there. Erilyn, she said, and then louder with delight. Erilyn Soren, you're here. You're Darian's sister. Heads turned in the room. People looked at me, then at Darian, and then at my parents. The silence that followed spoke louder than any words. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Lucien stepped up next to Evelise. He looked at my parents with polite but sharp eyes. You never told us your daughter was our Erilyn, he said. My dad opened his mouth but then shut it. He looked like he wanted to disappear. My mom stammered. We didn't know you knew her like that. She does some kind of computer work. We didn't think it was important for tonight. A few people around them exchanged confused looks. Lucien's jaw tightened just slightly, enough for me to notice. Important, he repeated slowly. Without her, this party wouldn't even happen. This building wouldn't be full. Half the people here would be updating their resumes instead of celebrating tonight. Evelise laughed lightly, trying to make the tension a little softer, but her words were strong. We've been bragging about her for months. I cannot imagine hiding someone like Erilyn Soren. Darian's face went pale. He looked at me like I had done something wrong just by existing. Erilyn, he whispered when he finally reached me. You didn't tell me you were working with them. I held his gaze. You didn't ask, I replied simply. Later, away from the crowd, my parents cornered me in a quiet hallway. My mom's voice shook as she whispered, You made us look like fools. We didn't know. I stopped her gently. I told her that I mattered, that my work mattered, and that their embarrassing daughter had been the one keeping the company running. My dad tried to sound strong. You could have warned us, Erilyn. We would have prepared differently. I almost laughed. Prepared how? By inviting me this time? By pretending to be proud of me? Darian stepped forward, his eyes shiny. Look, maybe we handled things wrong, he said. But you know how Mom and Dad are. We just wanted everything to go smoothly. You do, right? Want to be part of this family? At that moment, something inside me felt calm. I realized I had spent years trying to twist myself to fit in, to be accepted by people who always wanted me to be smaller. I took a deep breath and said to Darian, I will always be your sister, I told him. And I will always be their daughter. But I am done pretending I'm less than I am. I'm not shrinking anymore so others can look taller. I'm done chasing approval that comes with conditions. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Erilyn, we were just afraid, she said quietly. Afraid you'd embarrass us. I nodded. Tonight, the only embarrassing thing was how little you believed in me. That's on you, not me. Back in the ballroom, when Lucien introduced me on stage as an important partner, the applause felt different than anything I had felt before. It wasn't polite clapping from relatives who barely noticed me. It was people who had seen the results of my work. People who didn't care what I wore or if I asked weird questions, as long as I showed up with my ideas and did my job well. Standing there under the soft golden lights, I understood something I wish someone had told me years ago. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't being mean or cruel. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is choosing not to hand your worth to people who only see your flaws. It's letting your success shine in rooms where others never thought your voice would be heard. It's refusing to shrink so insecure people can feel taller. If your family ever made you feel like the embarrassing one, the extra one, or the one who should hide so others could look good, I want you to hear this. Their inability to see your value does not erase your value. You are allowed to build a life that shows who you really are. You can love your family, but still say no when their expectations hurt you. In the end, my parents had to walk past my framed photo every time they moved through the resort that night. My name was etched into the wall, showing everyone what I had done. They were the ones shrinking, avoiding eye contact, trying to say sorry. I just kept walking, shoulders back, finally understanding that the real glow-up wasn't about them accepting me. It was about me accepting myself first. I realized that for years, I had been twisting myself into a shape that other people wanted, bending my thoughts and feelings to make them comfortable. I stopped doing that night. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I was proud of myself. I had worked hard, I had helped people, and now everyone in that room could see it. The applause from the crowd wasn't just noise. It was recognition. People who didn't know me from birth, people who didn't care about family history, people who only cared about results and hard work, were saying, "Erilyn Soren, you are amazing. You belong. You matter." And for the first time, I really believed it. I looked at my parents and Darian one last time that night. They had to face the reality of my success. They had to see me not as the extra one, not as the one to hide, not as the one who might embarrass them, but as the person who had built something important with her own hands. I finally understood that real life isn't about shrinking yourself so others can shine. Real life is about shining bright enough for yourself and letting the world notice without begging anyone to care. That night, I walked through the golden lights of the ballroom, past my picture on the wall, past the people cheering for me, and felt something I had never felt before: peace, pride, and freedom. And I knew one thing for sure: no one could ever make me feel small again.